Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today on this glorious Monday doing something a bit different, something sort of off the wall, something related to my time spent with the Ghost Recon Wildlands open beta over the weekend. Obviously, a lot of you guys giving the beta a go, checking it out, having fun with your friends, playing it alone, however you were messing with it. It was definitely a good time. This Sunday, my brother and I realized that this was going to be our last opportunity to actually play the open beta before we had to get back to messing with other things, and before we had to wait just a little bit for the game's full release. So we sat down with about 4 to 5 hours to spare to play the game, and I came up with the idea to shoot for a bit of a goal. To literally shoot for a bit of a goal. Could we make, with the puny like 4x ACOG type scope in the open beta, a 1 kilometer sniper shot? Could we actually make that happen? What would we have to do, and what sort of limitations were going to be put in place by the game, obviously the scope technology, and also the visual representation of enemies at that sort of a distance? So we started to experiment, and we did eventually make the 1 kilometer shot. So let's talk about how we did it, and the sort of trials and tribulations that we went through along the way. This is actually kind of a fun story. I had a lot of fun messing around with this, and it wasn't as satisfying as I thought it was going to be when I did land that 1K shot, but as you will soon hear, it was because of the environment that we actually had to make the shot in. So let's actually talk a little bit about that tiny little scope that's given to us in the open beta. It's supposed to be a sniper scope, but it visually just looks like an ACOG that you then throw on these exceptionally powerful sniper rifles. I mean, there's an MSR, an M40, and then we use the HTI, which is like a crazy, compact, bullpup, super long range, super high caliber sniper rifle. And we throw this tiny little optic on it, and we try and shoot someone at 1 kilometer. There was a lot of limitations. The enemies in the game, regardless of platform, by the way, it doesn't matter how high your view distance is on PC, that only affects objects in foliage and things of that nature. The enemies themselves, the AI in the game, civilians, so on and so forth, they all disappear at pretty much the exact same distance across all 3 platforms. That happens to be around 650 meters. Pretty much anything past that, and the enemies are going to vanish from your screen. Obviously, this is for the sake of performance. You can't be able to see enemies, just while you're walking around in third person at all of the distances. Your performance would drop like a frickin' stone. So, very early on, we realized that this shot was going to have to be a blind shot. There was simply no way to even mark the enemies with another squad mate. They just wouldn't show up. The marks won't show up. Everything starts to disappear once you reach 1K. You're at that distance. You cannot see anything other than the terrain itself, the changes in geometry, rock faces, so on and so forth. So we started by going with that. We knew that we could make shots at 600 and 500 very consistently. And we could see where the bullet was going, and we could of course see how we needed to compensate for bullet drop. So we started by finding areas in which we could at least sit at 1K and have nice elevation. The first area, I decided it was actually going to take physical pictures. Okay, so if I'm close enough where I can see the enemies, I can take a picture on my phone, I can see where the enemies are in relation to the geometry, to the, the texture changes of the environment itself, and then when I'm out at 1K, even though it'll all be a blurry mess, I can at least somewhat know where I need to be putting these shots, or where I need to be trying to put said shots. So we positioned, I took the pictures, we moved back. I had 2 spotters, both my brother and our good friend. They were going to look for the bullets to see where they would fall so I could make corrections, and we started shooting. Now at this point, we already had messed around quite a bit with other far shots, shooting guys in guard towers and things like that. So I knew roughly where I needed to put the reticle over their heads, but that didn't mean I was going to be precise enough to actually land and kill one of them. So my very first shot ended up landing like right at the feet of 2 of the targets that you see in the picture. They of course scattered and went behind cover. So we messed around for probably another half an hour, maybe more than that, getting more ammo, going back, trying to make these shots, letting the enemies reset, and I simply could not get the shot where it needed to be. Obviously the difficulty here is the scope itself, and also the lack of stability that I have with the skills available in the beta. Every just second that scope is constantly bobbing and moving just a little bit here and there, and the smallest of adjustments at that distance can make for a massive difference in where the bullet actually lands. The ballistics are pretty solid when it comes to at least replicating bullet drop. Obviously we're not dealing with wind here, this isn't Sniper Elite on the hardest difficulty, but it's still stupid satisfying, and you still have to be really calm and really precise. we would eventually abandon the idea of making a realistic shot via spotters that was going to be blind, and instead just see if we could make the 1K shot regardless of how we had to actually set it up. Our answer? Take a couple bad guys hostage, drag them out into the middle of the mountains of Montoyac, and line up our 1 kilometer shot. Yeah, we did that. So the first half, we just kept taking shots after shots after shots, getting closer and closer. I'm consistently hearing through my mic, dude, it was right at his feet. And I'm like, oh, just let me kill this guy. Let's make this shot. Let's prove it's possible. And let's just grin when we're done with it all. Eventually, we decided to throw a flare down. So the flare would be where the player would actually stand while they were holding the hostage. And then I would use the diamonds that identify where your squad mates are in the environment to line up the shot horizontally and vertically. I would then finally make the shot. Boy, oh boy, was that a good feeling. I saw the little XP tick marker go off. I open up my stats. There it is. Well over 1K, actually. It is completely possible. Now, of course, with the technological limitations of this scope, we couldn't do it in a more realistic setting. Could have eventually made it happen if I had 3 days to screw around with it. But we do at least know that the bullets do travel that far. The ballistics in the game actually portray the bullets traveling for great distances. So I'm very excited, as I know many other of you sniper fanatics will be, to see what we can do with the more powerful scopes available in the full game. I will say that in experimenting with the drone zoom and the binocular zoom, it does seem that enemies appear on a zoom screen basis. So say my drone is floating just above me at that like 6 meter mark roughly, I can't see the enemies. But if I can zoom in enough with my drone zoom to get them to appear, then I can actually see them. So the same, hopefully, happens with the actual scopes themselves. If I have a 40x scope, and maybe I can't see with my binoculars or my drone zoom or my 12x, but the 40x can zoom in far enough, I should be able to see those enemies and make those insane long-range shots. Plenty of you guys should be able to boot up Wildlands when it releases on March 7th, play through the game, get those more powerful scopes, and then replicate some of your favorite long-distance cold bore shots made throughout sniper history. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and the Wildlands team had to have known that if they went out and gave us this massive open world and sniper rifles in it, people were gonna be going for shots like this. I imagine there's gonna be a pretty good chunk of the Wildlands community that is just all about making content surrounding really insane long-distance one-shot kills. I think solo sniper stuff in this game could make for some really cool, fun, but kind of corny content. Nonetheless, I'll probably mess around with it after Wildlands does go live. So there you have it, guys. My hunt and my success for that 1 kilometer shot in the Ghost Recon Wildlands open beta. It is indeed possible, and hopefully we'll be able to make some even further shots in a more realistic setting when the full game drops on March 7th. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great week. I'm going to be streaming Horizon Zero Dawn tonight over on Twitch if you want to come check that out. I've got a loadout for live fire dropping this week and plenty of other great content. I'm going to get back to working on that new closer, so I'll see you in the next one.